The crystal chandelier in the grand ballroom of the Vanderbilt Hotel trembled as Brian slammed the heavy oak doors open, his voice cracking like thunder over the murmur of silk gowns and clinking champagne flutes. If you think you can rewrite my life with a checkbook, you're dead wrong, because I'm done being your goddamn safety deposit box. The room fell silent, forks hovering midair, eyes widening like spotlights on a stage he never auditioned for. And there, in the suffocating hush, Alex stepped forward, his hand slipping into Brian's with a grip that said everything the family had ignored for years. In that frozen moment, Brian felt the world tilt, his heart pounding against the ribcage he'd armored with spreadsheets and stock portfolios since he was 18. The boy who'd traded playground bruises for boardroom battles now facing the ultimate merger, love or legacy. Brian had always been the fixer, the one who patched leaks in the family ship before anyone noticed the water rising. Born into the Hargrove dynasty in the shadow of Manhattan's steel spires, he was the third son of Richard Hargrove, a Wall Street titan whose empire spanned hedge funds and high-rises, a man who measured affection in quarterly reports. His older brothers, Ethan and Marcus, had carved out their chaos, Ethan with his yacht parties in the Hamptons, Marcus buried in scandals that tabloids devoured like caviar. Brian? He was the quiet engine, the kid who at 12 balanced the household books when their mother's alimony checks bounced, earning him the nickname, the bank, from a father who chuckled it like a badge of honor. But tonight, under the gilded arches of the Vanderbilt's ballroom, rented out for the Hargrove Foundation's annual gala, a glittering facade for laundering reputations, Brian wasn't playing treasurer anymore. The air smelled of orchids and old money, the kind that whispered rather than shouted. Crystal glasses caught the light from 100 chandeliers, casting fractured rainbows across faces Botoxed into perpetual surprise. Politicians in tuxedos schmoozed with socialites, all orbiting Richard Hargrove like planets around a black hole of influence. And there, at the head table, sat the family, Richard, silver-haired and steely-eyed, his arm draped possessively over Elaine, wife number 3, a former model whose laugh tinkled like wind chimes in a hurricane. Brian's pulse thrummed in his ears as he crossed the marble floor, Alex's fingers laced through his like an anchor in a storm. Alex Rivera, with his easy grin and ink-smeared hands from freelance graphic design gigs in Brooklyn, was everything the Hargroves weren't: unpolished, unapologetic, alive. They'd met 6 months ago at a dive bar in the East Village, Brian nursing a whiskey after a brutal merger fallout, Alex sketching strangers on a napkin. One crooked smile, one shared cigarette on the fire escape, and Brian's carefully constructed walls had cracked. Late nights tangled in Alex's tiny loft, whispering dreams between breaths, Alex's tales of growing up queer in a Texas oil town, Brian's confessions of feeling like a ghost in his own bloodline. It was messy, electric, the kind of love that didn't come with NDAs. But as they approached the table, Brian's stomach twisted. He'd rehearsed this in the cab ride over, words scripted like a pitch deck, casual, confident, no room for rebuttal. But the second Richard's gaze locked on their joined hands, the air thickened, charged with the static of unspoken edicts. Brian, his father said, voice smooth as aged bourbon but edged with frost, "You're late." "And who's this?" The table froze. Ethan paused mid-sip, his playboy smirk faltering. Marks, nursing a scotch, leaned back with a predatory glint. Elaine's perfectly manicured nails tapped her stemware, a Morse code of discomfort. Brian swallowed, tasting bile. Everyone, this is Alex. My boyfriend. The word hung there, bold and brittle, shattering the polite hum of the room. A few heads turned, whispers rippling like aftershocks. Richard's face didn't crack, but his eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, narrowed to slits. Boyfriend, he repeated, as if tasting a bad vintage. Interesting timing. Son. We were just discussing the Foundation's new endowment. Your input, as always, is invaluable. It was code, the kind only Hargroves understood. Toe the line, or the keys to the kingdom get yanked. Alex squeezed Brian's hand, his thumb brushing a soothing circle over knuckles white from tension. Pleasure to meet you, sir, Alex said. Steady. That faint Texas drawl cutting through the pretension like a knife through butter. Brian's told me all about the good work you do. Congrats on the expansion, sounds like it's gonna change lives. Helene forced a smile, brittle as spun sugar. How? Progressive. Brian. Darling. You didn't mention company. Her eyes flicked to Alex's scuffed boots, the faded band tee under his blazer, a stark contrast to the bespoke suits encircling them. Ethan barked a laugh. Too loud. Too sharp. Well, little bro. Didn't peg you for the Rainbow Brigade. Pass the caviar, this night's getting colorful. Marcus just stared, his silence heavier than judgment. Lips curled in something between amusement and disdain. Brian's chest tightened, a vice of old wounds reopening. He'd hidden Alex for weeks. Stolen weekends in Central Park. Stolen kisses in shadowed alleys. All while crunching numbers for the family coffers. The bank, that's what they called him. Half joking. Half in awe. At 28, he'd clawed his way to CFO of Hargrove Investments, turning red ink black overnight, bailing out Ethan's bad bets and Marcus's mistresses. In return, a nod at Christmas, a backroom deal here, a good job. That was for the help, not the heirs. But Alex had changed the math. Last week, over cold pizza in bed, Alex had traced the lines of Brian's palm and said, "You're more than their ledger. Brief. You're the guy who makes my coffee taste like home." It was simple, stupidly profound, and it terrified Brian because it felt real. Real enough to drag him here, to this powder keg of a party. Richard cleared his throat, signaling the orchestra to swell into a waltz, as if music could drown dissent. Let's not air laundry in public, shall we, Brian? A word, in the lounge. It wasn't a request. As they rose, Alex's hand slipped away, but his eyes held Brian's. "I've got you." The lounge was a velvet cocoon off the ballroom, walls paneled in mahogany that smelled of cigars and conquests. Richard poured 2 scotches from a decanter, handing one over like a truce. "Sit," he commanded, sinking into a leather armchair that swallowed him whole. Brian perched on the edge of the sofa, glass untouched. "It's not a big deal." "Alex is a distraction," Richard cut in, voice low, lethal. "You know the stakes, Brian." The board's sniffing around after Marcus's indiscretions. Ethan's off the rails again. You're the steady hand, the one they trust. And now this? Parading it. Paramore at the gala? It paints us as unstable. Weak. Brian's laugh was bitter. Hello. Unstable? Like burying mom's overdose under tragic accident? Or paying off Marcus's coke habit with foundation funds? I'm tired of being the cleanup crew. Alex isn't a liability, he's the first honest thing in my life. Richard's fist clenched around his glass. Knuckles blanching. Honest? This empire was built on discretion? Son. Your grandfather clawed out of the depression with nothing but grit and a poker face. I gave you everything, Harvard, the corner office. And you repay me by what? Playing house with some artist kid? Think of the family. Brian. Think of the legacy. Legacy. The words soured in Brian's mouth like spoiled milk. He'd spent years chasing it. Nights blurring into dawn over Excel sheets. Lunches skipped for Lilo meetings. Dates? Fleeting. Forgettable. Always ending with excuses about work emergencies. Until Alex, who saw through the suits to the scared kid underneath. The one who'd cried in the bathroom at his mother's funeral. Whispering, "Why not me? I am thinking of the family," Brian shot back. Voice rising. But not yours. The one I choose. Twisted. Scotch sloshing over the rim. If loving him costs me the title of the bank, fine. Withdraw it all. Richard's face darkened. A storm cloud over the skyline. You walk out that door with him. You walk away from everything. No trust fund. No shares. No name on the door. The ultimatum hung heavy. A guillotine blade mid-swing. Brian's heart hammered. Visions flashing, empty bank accounts. Eviction notices for the penthouse he'd called home since college. But then Alex's face, warm. Waiting. Unwavering. Then consider the account closed. Turned. Striding back to the ballroom. The door slamming behind him like a full stop. Alex was by the bar. Chatting with a bemused waiter. But his eyes snapped to Brian's. Reading the war in his stance. "Hey," Alex murmured. Pulling him close. Lips brushing his temple. "You okay?" "Not yet," Brian admitted. Voice muffled against Alex's shoulder. "But I will be." The gala dragged on. A farce of toasts and dances. But the undercurrent buzzed. Whispers followed them. "Did you see? Hargrove's boy." With a man. Ethan cornered Brian by the dessert table. Breath reeking of gin. "Ball's a move." But Dad's not bluffing. Remember what happened to Aunt Lydia when she came out? Cut off cold. "You'll be begging for scraps by Christmas." Marcus slunk up, clapping a hand on Brian's back too hard. "Or you could spin it. Say it's a phase. Keep the cash flowing." His eyes gleamed. Hungry. Brian shrugged him off. Nausea rising. These were his brothers, blood, but not kin. As the night wound down, Richard approached. Elaine trailing like a shadow. "Brian," he said. Voice pitched for reconciliation. "Sleep on it. Family sticks together." Brian met his gaze. "Steel for steel." "Not when it breaks us." He took Alex's arm. And they walked out into the November chill of Park Avenue. The city lights blurring through unshed tears. Steam rising from grates like ghosts of regrets. In the backseat, Alex pulled Brian's head to his chest. Heartbeat a steady drum against the chaos. "You did it," Alex whispered. "I'm proud as hell." Brian exhaled, the weight lifting fractionally. But as the cab merged into traffic, His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You think you're free? Check your email." The apartment was a sanctuary of exposed brick and mismatched furniture. The kind of Brooklyn walk-up that creaked with character. Alex flicked on the string lights, casting a golden haze over the chaos, sketchpads strewn like fallen leaves, half-empty coffee mugs etched with memories. Brian collapsed onto the sagging couch, the adrenaline crash hitting like a freight train. His fingers trembled as he pulled up the email. The subject line, a gut punch, your withdrawal, terms and conditions. It was from Marcus, forwarded from the family lawyer. Pages of legalese scrolled by, but the gist was venom. Brian's reckless actions had triggered a morality clause in the trust. Shares frozen. Access revoked. And worst, the Foundation's books, audited overnight, revealing irregularities in Brian's ledgers. Embezzlement. The setup, plain as the ink on the page. Marcus's signature flourish at the bottom, like a serpent's tail. "Son of a bitch," Brian muttered, hurling the phone. It skittered across the floor, screen cracking. Alex knelt, gathering it gently. "What is it? Betrayal?" "Marcus, he must have cooked the numbers. Framed me to keep the throne." Rage boiled, hot and helpless. Years of loyalty, of covering their asses, repaid with a noose. Alex's arms enveloped him, strong and sure. "Hey." Brief. "We'll fight it. Lawyers. Audits, whatever it takes." But Brian's mind raced ahead. Courtrooms. Timelines. The Hargrove name dragged through mud he'd helped shovel. And Alex, caught in the crossfire? He couldn't let that happen. "I can't drag you into this mess," he said, pulling back. "It's poison." Alex's eyes flashed, hurt flickering before resolve hardened it. "I'm in it already." Brief. "Because I choose you. Not the money, not the drama, the man who laughs at my shitty puns and holds me when the world's too loud." They made love that night, slow and desperate, bodies mapping forgiveness in the dark. Alex's hands roamed like they were claiming territory, lips tracing scars Brian had hidden even from himself. "You're mine," Alex growled against his throat. And Brian believed it, if only for those stolen hours. Morning brought coffee and clarity, or so Brian thought. A knock echoed through the loft, sharp as judgment. Ethan stood there, disheveled in yesterday's tux, eyes bloodshot. "Let me in, babe. We need to talk." Against Alex's wary glance, Brian stepped aside. Ethan paced, running hands through his hair. "Marcus is gunning for you. Dad's letting it ride, thinks it'll teach you a lesson. But I can't watch this." "Why now?" Brian demanded, arms crossed. "You laughed it off last night." Ethan winced. "Because you're the only one who ever gave a damn. Remember sophomore year? I totaled the Beamer. Dad was gonna ship me off to military school. You lied. Said it was you. Took the beating." He sank onto a stool, head in hands. "I owe you. Let me help fix the books. Prove it's bullshit." Suspicion warred with hope. The golden boy. Turning coat? But blood was blood, and desperation bred allies. Why risk it? Because family's not just the assholes at the top table. It's this. Ethan gestured vaguely at the loft. at Alex brewing coffee in the kitchenette. Real shit. And because I'm scared too. Of losing you for good. The words cracked something in Brian. A fissure in the armor. They spent the day huddled over laptops. Ethan spilling secrets, Marcus's offshore accounts. The slush funds siphoned for mistresses. By dusk, they had a counter-narrative. Emails queued to the board. But as Ethan left, clapping Brian's shoulder, doubt lingered. Trust was a currency Brian had bankrupted long ago. Nights blurred into a rhythm, Alex's warmth against the chill of uncertainty. Ethan's cryptic updates filtering in. Then the call came, Richard? Voice like gravel. Board meeting tomorrow. Your brother's pushing charges. Come alone. End this farce. Brian's grip tightened on the phone. No farce. Just truth. He hung up, turning to Alex, who watched from the doorway, concern etching lines around his eyes. You don't have to go, Alex said softly. I do. For us. Brian pulled him close, kissing him fierce, as if it could armor them both. The Hargrove Tower loomed like a monolith against the slate-gray sky, rain sluicing down its glass facade. Brian strode through the lobby, security nodding him past like a ghost. The executive floor was a sterile hive, hushed voices, the hum of printers birthing fortunes. Richard waited in the conference room, alone. The city sprawled below like a conquered kingdom. Sit, he said again. That old command. Brian remained standing. Where's Marcus? Indisposed. This is between us. Richard slid a folder across the table. Photos. Grainy but damning. Brian and Alex in the park. Tangled in an embrace. Receipts from Alex's loft. Time-stamped during work hours. Your distractions are costing us. The board sees weakness. Resign quietly, and the allegations vanish. Take your artist and go. Rage surged. Why not? You spied on me? Set this up. He snatched the folder. Pages scattering like confetti from hell. Richard's expression didn't waver. Protection. For the family. You're throwing it away for, what? Fleeting passion? I've seen it before. Brian. It fades. Blood doesn't. Blood. Brian laughed. Manic. You mean control. Marcus is bleeding us dry. And you let him because he's straight? Successful in your image. I'm the queer kid who fixed your messes. But God forbid I love who I love. Richard rose. Face flushing. What? This is delusion. Walk away. Or we bury you. The door burst open, breathless, laptop in hand. Too late. I've got the proof. Marcus's Cayman accounts. The falsified ledgers. It's all here. He plugged in. Projections flickering to life. Spreadsheets damning Marcus. Timelines aligning with the frame job. Richard's composure shattered. Eyes darting like a cornered animal. Ethan. You traitorous. Family. Remember. Ethan shot back. Voice steady for once. The kind that doesn't eat its own. Sirens wailed distantly. The storm breaking outside. Brian watched his father crumple. The Titan reduced to a tired man. You win, Richard muttered. But at what cost? Growth, Brian said simply. Maybe it's time. The fallout hit like a market crash, swift, merciless. rewriting fortunes overnight. Marcus was hauled into the SEC's maw by noon, his empire of lies unraveling in handcuffs and flashbulbs. The headline screamed, "Hargrove heir in embezzlement scandal, family CFO vindicated." Brian's name, once a footnote, blazed across the Post and the Times, painted as the whistleblower hero. But victory tasted like ash, bitter with the shards of what was lost. The penthouse echoed with emptiness when Brian finally returned, key turning in the lock like a reluctant confession. Boxes lined the foyer, his life, packed by Elaine's efficiency team, labeled in crisp Helvetica, kitchen essentials, personal effects. A note from his father, scrawled on monogram stationery, "Keys to the kingdom. Returned. Use wisely." Are no apology, just the cold finality of severance. He wandered the marble halls, ghosts trailing, echoes of childhood Christmases, the creak of his mother's heels on these floors before the pills took her. The master suite, with its king bed and Hudson views, felt like a museum of solitude. Brian sank onto the duvet, phone clutched like a lifeline. Alex's text glowed, "Boardwalk? Sunset. Need my hero fix." A laugh bubbled up, raw and real. Alex, always the tether pulling him back from the edge. They met at Coney Island as the sun dipped, painting the Atlantic in fire. The boardwalk thrummed with summer stragglers, families licking cones, teens daring the waves. Alex waited by the cyclone's shadow, hands in pockets, wind tousling his curls. Brian enveloped him without a word, burying his face in the crook of Alex's neck, inhaling salt and sandalwood. "It's over," he murmured. "The job, the apartment, everything." Alex pulled back, eyes searching. And I'm free." The words felt foreign, light as sea foam. They walked, shoulders brushing, the Ferris wheel's lights twinkling like distant stars. Alex bought them hot dogs from a cart, mustard dripping like reckless joy. "So, what's next, Mr. X-Bank? World domination or Netflix marathons?" Brian grinned. "The first real one in days. Figure the rest." That night, in the loft's cocoon, they dreamed aloud. Alex sketched floor plans for a shared studio, Brian's finance smarts funding ethical startups. Alex's art breathing life into brands that mattered. "No more hiding," Alex said, pencil pausing. "Proud. All in." Brian traced the lines of Alex's sketch, heart swelling. All in, but freedom's dawn brought shadows. Ethan's call shattered the idyll, Dad's spiraling. Drinking heavy? Hold up in the office. The boards circling, talk of ousting him. "He needs you." Bree. Guilt twisted like a knife. "Richard?" The unyielding oak, felled by his own axe. Brian paced the loft, Alex watching with quiet concern. "You don't owe him this," Alex said. "Not after everything. I know." "But he's still..." Brian trailed off, the word Dad too vulnerable to voice. The Hargrove Tower felt alien now, security guards averting eyes as he ascended. Richard was a husk in the corner office, tie askew, decanter half empty. "You came," he rasped, not looking up. "Family," Brian echoed Ethan's line, sinking into the chair opposite. The skyline mocked them, indifferent. Richard poured a finger of scotch, sliding it over. I was wrong. About you. About him. The admission clawed out. Ragged. Your mother, she loved fiercely. I buried it after she died. Thought it made me strong. Brian's throat tightened. It made you scared. Silence stretched. Heavy with unsaid elegies. The board votes tomorrow, Richard continued. Without you, I'm done. Legacy in ruins. Not ruins, Brian countered. Rebuild. Let Ethan step up, he's ready. And Marcus. Consequences build character. Richard's laugh was wry. Broken. Poetic. From my accountant. From your son. Brian stood. Hand extended, not in supplication, but equality. Richard clasped it. Grip frail but firm. A bridge. Rickety but real. Said. Rain lashed the streets. But Brian's steps were lighter. He texted Alex, dinner at mine? Penthouse last hurrah. The meal was takeout Thai on the balcony. City lights a glittering sea below. Alex arrived with wine and wariness. But Richard's absence eased the tension. They ate cross-legged on the rug. Chopsticks clacking like Morse code. He apologized, Brian said. Popping edamame. Sort of. Alex's brow arched. Progress. As plates cleared, the air shifted, charged, intimate. Alex's foot nudged Brian's, a spark jumping the gap. Show me around, he murmured, eyes dark with intent. The tour was a slow burn, kitchen counters where Brian mapped futures, the library with its leather tomes whispering secrets. In the bedroom, overlooking the river's serpentine glow, Alex backed him against the window, glass cool against Brian's spine. This place, Alex breathed, lips grazing his jaw. It's really grand, guarded. But tonight, it's ours. Clothes shed like old skins, pooling at their feet. Alex's hands were reverent, mapping collarbones, dipping lower, drawing gasps that fogged the pain. Brian surrendered, arching into the touch, the city's pulse syncing with his own. They moved to the bed, a tangle of limbs and whispers, Alex's mouth a constellation of heat, trailing neck. The sensitive hollow of hip. Beautiful, Alex murmured against skin, voice husky. Brian's fingers knotted in dark hair, urging, pleading. Pleasure built like a crescendo, waves crashing in tandem. Alex entered him slow, eyes locked, a vow in every thrust, deliberate, claiming. Brian's world narrowed to this, the stretch, the friction, the raw emotion etching lines on Alex's face. Climax hit like lightning, Brian crying out, Alex following with a shuddering groan, bodies slick and spent. Tangled in sheets, Alex traced lazy patterns on Brian's chest. Whatever comes, we've got this. Brian kissed his temple. Yeah. We do. Dawn brought decisions. Brian signed the lease on a one-bedroom in Williamsburg, cozy. The move was chaos, boxes hauled in U-Hauls, Nathan showing up with pizza and muscle, even Elaine with her designer platters, offering a tentative call if you need. Richard sent a check, not severance, but seed money for new ventures, annotated, invest in what matters. The first weeks were a honeymoon haze, mornings with Alex's coffee, strong and sweet, evenings sketching logos for Brian's consultancy, ethical finance for queer startups. They argued over paint colors, Alex pushing teal, Brian neutral grays, then made up in laughter and limbs. Unscripted? Bloomed. But cracks spiderweb subtly. Late calls from Richard, probing for intel on board maneuvers. Ethan's texts, laced with urgency, Dad's pushing a merger, shady as hell. Brian demurred. Boundaries his new mantra. Yet the pull lingered, a siren's call of old habits. One night, after a gallery opening in Chelsea, Alex's pieces on display. Raw queer narratives in bold strokes, Brian found him staring at a text. Face ashen. It's nothing, Alex said too quickly. Talk to me. Brian's hand on his arm. Gentle insistence. Alex sighed. Screen glowing. Miss you? Baby. When you coming home? TX's name. A ghost from Texas. Jealousy flared. Irrational but sharp. You didn't tell me. It's old news. Blocked him months ago. But seeing it stirs shit up. Alex's eyes pleaded. You're it for me. Brief. Promise. Brian nodded, swallowing doubt. But seeds planted roots. The consultancy took off, clients flocking to Brian's rep as the Hargrove Redeemer. Late nights returned. Not in towers but in home offices. Screens bathing his face in blue. Alex adapted, sketching silently. But tension hummed. Missed dinners? Curt replies. Then, the bomb, Ethan's frantic voicemail. Marcus out on bail. He's gunning for revenge, spilling dirt on Alex. Rumors? Twisted. Dad's in damage control. Get here. Brian's blood iced. He drove to the tower in the witching hour. Rain sheeting windshields. The family war room, Richard pacing. Ethan nursing coffee. Marcus smirking from a video link. Silk pajamas framing his sneer. You brought this on yourself, Marcus drawled. Parading your little fairy. I just amplified the noise. Amplified? Brian snarled. You leaked his ex's abuse claims? Twisted them to make him look unstable? Richard intervened. Hand raised. Enough. We contain it. Alex signs an NDA. Stays out of sight. No. Brian's voice cracked like a whip. You don't touch him. The room erupted, accusations flying. Loyalties fracturing. Ethan sided with Brian. But Richard's glare pinned him. Choose. Son. Us or him. Again. The fork. Brian walked. Door slamming finality. Back home. Alex waited. Eyes red-rimmed. I saw the posts. They're saying I'm a gold digger. That I trapped you. Brian pulled him close. Fury and fear mingling. Please. We'll sue. Countersue. But the cost. Alex whispered. Your family. Torn apart. For me. Worth it. But as they held each other, Brian wondered if love could weather war. Rebuilding started small, a joint statement to the press. Alex's art as armor. Bold and unashamed. Supporters rallied, queer activists. Old clients, turning scandal to solidarity. Dates became deliberate, picnics in Prospect Park. Hands linked defiantly, movie nights with popcorn fights dissolving into kisses. Yet nightmares plagued Brian, dreams of empty lofts. Alex walking away. He woke sweating, clutching sheets. Alex's snores a lifeline. One crisp fall morning. Over bagels slathered in lox. Alex broached it. Therapy. For both of us. Unpack the baggage. Brian hesitated. Hargroves didn't do shrinks, but nodded. Sessions in a sunlit office. Spilling guts. Brian's buried grief. Alex's scars from a homophobic upbringing. Vulnerability bonded them deeper. Words weaving tighter than touch. Holiday loomed. Thanksgiving a minefield. Invitation from Richard arrived. Handwritten, table set for 6. Bring him. Brian showed Alex. Heart pounding. Your call. Alex's grin was wicked. Let's crash it. Make him squirm. The Hargrove estate in the Hamptons was a bastion of excess, roaring fireplaces. Tables groaning under turkey and trimmings. Elaine fluttered. Ethan cracked dad jokes. Even Marcus slunk in on parole. Sullen but silenced. Richard rose as they entered. Alex's hand in Brian's a flag planted. Welcome, he said. Voice gruff. The beat. Then, both of you. Dinner was a tightrope, toasts skirting edges. Laughter tentative. Alex charmed with Texas tales. Drawing reluctant smiles. Under the table. His knee pressed Brian's. We're okay. By the library fire. Richard pulled Brian aside. He's good for you. I see it now. The pause. Waited. I'm trying. Son. Brian's eyes stung. That's enough. As they drove back under star-pricked skies. Alex's head on his shoulder. Brian exhaled years of held breath. Love wasn't a ledger. It balanced in the quiet victories. The hands held through storms. But winter deepened. And so did doubts. A client dinner ran late. Brian stumbling in at 2 a.m. Alex asleep on the couch. Sketchpad abandoned. Sorry, Brian mumbled. But the words echoed hollow. Alex stirred. Hurt shadowing his face. It's not the hours. It's you drifting back to them. I'm not. You are. Alex's voice broke. Every call. Every quick meeting. I feel like the side hustle. Guilt crashed. Brian knelt. Taking his hands. I swear. It's us. Always. They talk till dawn. Raw and reckoning. Boundaries redrawn. No family calls after 8. Date night sacred. Commended. Stronger. Spring bloomed with promise. Alex's gallery solo show. Brian's firm hitting milestones. They adopted a rescue mutt. A fluffy chaos agent who tripped them into laughter. Yet fate's cruel. A routine checkup for Alex. That nagging cough. The doctor's face, grave. Lymph nodes enlarged. Biopsy next. The world tilted again. Waiting room purgatory. Brian's hand crushing Alex's. Results, Hodgkin's lymphoma. Early stage. Treatable, but the fear? A beast gnawing insides. Chemo started. Alex's vibrancy dimmed by nausea. Hat's hiding hair loss. Brian became caregiver. Ginger Alesh at midnight. Forehead kisses through chills. You're my fighter, he whispered. Holding him as sobs racked. Family fractured further. Richard sent checks. Impersonal. Ethan visited with contraband tacos. Marcus? Silence. A ghost. Through it, their love distilled, pure, fierce. Alex sketched from bed. Portraits of Brian fierce with devotion. This, he rasped one night, is why we endure. Remission came summer. Scans clean. Joy exploding in rooftop parties. Tears and toasts. Brian proposed on the boardwalk. Ring simple silver. Knee in sand. Marry me. Build forever. Alex's yes was a sunrise. The wedding planning was a whirlwind of whimsy and wills. Alex dreaming drag queen officiants and rainbow arches. Brian grounding it with budgets and Brooklyn venues. They settled on a rooftop in Williamsburg. June sun gilding the East River. Guests a eclectic tribe, Alex's artist crew in flamboyant fits. Brian's tentative family in tailored neutrals. Richard showed. Arm linked with Elaine. A quiet nod his vow of presence. Ethan bestmaned with heartfelt toasts. Even Marcus lurked at the edges. Parole permitting a wary truce. Vows exchanged under a chuppah woven with pride flags. Alex's voice steady. You saw me. Scars and all. And loved harder. I do, today. Tomorrow. Always. Brian's cracked. You taught me wealths in whispers. Not wallets. Forever yours. The kiss ignited cheers. Confetti swirling like liberated dreams. Reception pulsed with beats. Bodies swaying, queer joy unbridled. As stars pricked the sky, Brian pulled Alex to a corner, slow dancing to a remix of their first bar song. Husband, he murmured, the word a revelation. Alex grinned, eyes sparkling. Sounds right. Honeymoon in Provincetown, salt air. Whale watches. Nights in a lighthouse B&B where waves lulled them to sleep entwined. They returned tanned. Viewed, matching infinity loops on wrists. Inked in a seaside parlor. Life settled into a symphony, Brian's consultancy thriving. Mentoring queer entrepreneurs, Alex's murals gracing borough walls. Stories in color. Luna puppied underfoot. Chaos their constant. Date nights evolved. Cooking classes where sauces scorched. Stargazing on fire escapes. Hands tracing new constellations on skin. But harmony hid undercurrents. Richard's health faltered, prostate cancer. Stage 2. The irony bitter. Hospital visits became ritual, Brian at bedside. Alex charming nurses with sketches. He's proud, Richard confessed one sterile afternoon. Monitors beeping. This. Families evolve, Brian replied, squeezing his hand. Richard nodded. Eyes misty, vulnerability. Long buried. Unearthed. Ethan's engagement to a barista named Sophia brought levity, double dates in dive bars. Her laugh disarming Marcus's remnants. The brothers mended. Slowly fishing trips where apologies fished out alongside trout. Alex's art exploded, a mural for the Stonewall anniversary. Commissioned by the city? His face on billboards. Jealousy nipped at Brian, crowds fawning. Offers from LA galleries. Go, Brian urged. Shine. But doubt whispered, what if he outgrows me? Late night confessions? Alex's reassurances, you're my anchor. Brief. The rest is just wind. Summer swelled with a surprise, positive test. Adoption papers in motion. The boy. From the system, Javier. Wide-eyed and wary. With curls like Alex's and a grin that melted defenses. Home studies. Court dates. Then he was theirs. Dads, Javi tested, hugging knees on the couch. Always, they chorused. Hearts full. Parenting was pandemonium, scraped knees, bedtime stories blending finance fables with fairy tales. Brian taught piggy banks, Alex finger paints. Holidays healed, Thanksgiving at the estate, Javi's awe at the turkey, Richard bouncing him on knee, laughter echoing voids. Yet cracks widened elsewhere. A client poached Brian for a high-stakes firm, 6 figures. Corner office redux. Tempted, Alex asked over wine. Casual but probing. Only if you come, Brian hedged. But the offer lingered. A siren's salary. The betrayal brewed slow. Marx. Reformed on paper. Launched a startup, fintech. Hargrove shadows. Initial meetings polite. Then an email. Innocuous at first. Partnership opportunity. Leverage your name. Brian declined. But Marcus persisted. Dinners. Deals sweetened. One night. Post-bedtime. Laptop glowing. Brian crunched projections. Lucrative. Food. Alex found him at dawn. Eyes hollow. Tell me you said no. I. Considering. Flashed. After everything? You're sliding back. It's business, Brian defended. Voice thin. It's them. Alex's voice rose. Javi stirring down the hall. We built this. Not empires. The fight festered. Silences at breakfast. Javi's confusion a knife. Brian signed with Marcus. Rationalizing. Stability for our son. Launch party glittered. Suits. Thus. Richard's proud clap. Alex stayed home with Javi. Text Kurt. Congrats. Homecoming was ice. Alex in the kitchen. Back turned. He's using you. Again. Proof. Brian snapped. Exhaustion fraying. Instinct. Alex whirled. Eyes fierce. And love, knowing when to fight dirty. Doubt nod. Weeks in. Anomalies surfaced. Funds misdirected. Marcus's signature on shady transfers. Brian confronted. Video call venomous. Cleaning house. Brother? Like old times? Marcus sneered. You were always soft. Now you're in the splash zone. Audit confirmed. Embezzlement. Marcus fleeing to Dubai. You see again. Headlines howling. Hargrove redux. CFO duped. Board ousted Brian. Reputation singed. He returned broken. Apartment a war zone of boxes. Alex packing. Javi's toys scattered like shrapnel. Please, Brian begged. On knees. I fucked up. Chasing ghosts. Alex paused. Duffel half-zipped. Tears carving tracks. You chose them. Every time. Javi toddled in. Clutching bear. Daddy sad. Both cracked. Alex knelt. Hugging him. Daddy's fix it. Buddy. Therapy tripled. Family sessions. Brian spilling greed's grip. Alex forgiving in layers. Separation loomed. But love's embers smoldered. Reconciliation sparked slow. Co-parenting Javi. Stolen coffees evolving to dinners. Brian shuttered the firm. Pivoting to nonprofit. Financial literacy for LGBTQ youth. Humble. Healing. Anniversary approached. First post-betrayal. Brian planned meticulously. Rooftop. String lights. Alex's favorite tacos. No ring. No please, just presents. As dusk fell, Brian waited, nerves electric. Alex arrived. Javi in arms. Luna at heels. Heard you needed backup. They said. City humming below. I'm sorry, Brian started. For dimming us. Alex's hand found his. We dim. We glow. That's marriage. Kiss tentative. Then torrent. Forgiveness in salt and heat. Javi clapped. Oblivious to mending. Fall brought Richard's remission. A barbecue sealing scars. Brothers grilling. Elaine's pies. Stories swapping shame for strength. To Banks rebuilt, Richard toasted. Glass raised to Brian and Alex. Cheers, they echoed. Intertwined. Winter whispered change, Alex's fellowship in San Francisco, 6 months. Murals for a queer center. Come, he asked. Hope fragile. Brian Wade, Javi School. Roots new dug. Trial run. Weekends. Airports became altars. Goodbyes tear-streaked. Reunions ravenous. Distance distilled desire. Letters emailed. Filthy and fond. Calls midnight lit. Voices bridges. Javi adapted. FaceTimes with Papa Alex, a ritual. Brian's nonprofit grew. Chapters sprouting. Purpose profound. Spring reunion, airport dash. Alex's arms home. Missed this, he growled. Claiming lips. They tumbled, clothes shed. Bodies recounting absence. Alex's hands urgent. Mouth mapping months missed. Throat. Nipples pebbling. Trail south. Brian gasped. Arching as tongue delved. Wet heat coiling tight. Now, he pleaded. Flipping them. Sinking down slow, inch by inch. Eyes locked in worship. Rhythm built. Frantic then fervent. Release shattering. Cries mingling. Sated. Alex murmured. Stay? Full time. Brian's yes was destiny. Summer sealed it. Move west? Javi thrilled at ocean views. Bluff. Murals blooming walls. Richard visited. Granddad spoiling, Ethan relocated branch. Family fractal but fused. Challenges came, Javi's coming out at 12. School bullies met with united front, Alex's relapse scare. False alarm but faith fortified. Through. Love's ledger balanced, debts of doubt paid in devotion. Assets in every glance. Porch swing creaking. Javi asleep inside. They watched sunset bleed gold. Worth the shocks? Alex asked. Head on shoulder. Brian kissed his crown. Every volt. Years layered like patina on bronze. Burnishing rough edges to resilient sheen. Javi grew into a teen, lanky. Questioning. With Alex's fire and Brian's quiet steel. Coming out at 14. Over pancakes, I'm bi. Dads. Like both. Hugs enveloped. Stories shared, Alex's Texas trials. Brian's closet cracks. Pride parades became tradition, rainbow face paint. Javi marching with sign, love wins. Bitches. Brian's nonprofit. Now Equity Forge. Spanned coasts, workshops and shelters. Scholarships for trans youth. Accolades trickled, TED Talk. Were equipped. I was the family's ATM, till I cashed out for heart. Laughter rippled. Alex in front row. Eyes proud pools. Alex's career crested. Guggenheim Fellowship. Murals in MoMA. But roots held, teaching at community centers. Hands in paint and kids' dreams. They mentored together. Javi interning summers. Bridging art and advocacy. Family evolved. Richard retired to a vineyard cottage. Memoirs ghosted. Hargrove reckoning. Confessions veiled in boardroom battles. Visits warmed. Chess with Javi. Richard admitting, "You saved me, son." By leaving, Ethan's twins arrived. Sophia's warmth thawing Marcus's ice. The black sheep redeemed. Therapy mandated. Startup ethical. Apology letter to Alex. I was poison. Your antidote. Holidays healed fully. Passover seders blending queer rituals. Marcus lighting candles. Voice thick. Diane, enough. But we got more. Yet life lanced. Javi's first heartbreak. A boy ghosting post-prom. Dads tag-teamed. Ice cream with Alex. Finance of feelings with Brian. Invest in those who match your rate. Brian's midlife murmur hit at 45. Restlessness. Legacy's echo. Therapy unearthed. Am I enough? Beyond the bank. Alex. Ever sage, you're the vault I chose. Gold inside. Renewal right. Sabbatical in Tuscany. Villa vines heavy with grapes. Mornings writing. Brian's essays on queer capital. Alex's graphic novel of their saga. Afternoons tangled in olive groves. Bodies timeless. Alex's mouth skilled. Drawing moans from depths. Brian's turn reverent. Worshipping thighs. The curve where leg met heat. Love languid. Laughter laced. Climax a symphony. Sighs sinking with cicadas. Return invigorated. Book launches entwined. Tours tag team. College bound for RISD. Beamed at signings. My dad's. The legends. Empty nest loomed. But they filled it fierce. Volunteering in AIDS hospices. Hands holding strangers as Alex sketched final portraits. Brian funding care. Echoes of loss. Friends fading. But light lingered in legacies. 60th loom tandem. Silver foxed. Brian's hair threaded white. Alex's curls wild gray. Vows renewed on that Coney boardwalk. Sunset witness. Javi officiated. Spouse beside. Non-binary artist. Love's latest bloom. Through shocks and sparks, Alex vowed. Ring slipping home. Bank on us, Brian echoed. Kiss sealing eternities. Richard's passing came gentle. Vineyard autumn. Leaves aflame. That's it. He gripped hands. Brian's. Alex's. You built better. Thank you. Eulogy Brian's. He learned late. Loved last, but he learned. Graveside. Family circled. Ethan's tears. Marcus's stoic nod. Javi's poem fluttering wind. Bonfire wake. Stories scorched shame. Forged forward. Decades distilled. 80ths in the loft. Now museum of memories. Javi's Oscars for docs. Grandkids' crayons on walls. Frailty crept. Alex's arthritis stiffening brushes. Brian's ticker demanding pace. Hospice hush. Alex fading. Cancer's quiet coup. Brian at side. Javi and lineage orbiting. Loved you shocks to soul, Alex whispered. Hand in Brian's. Always withdrawing interest, Brian teased. Tears tracing. Last breath a sigh. Release. Grief's chasm, Brian adrift. Canvases collecting dust. But Javi's nudge, Papa's sketchbooks, finish his story. pen to page. Brian wove their tale, manuscript from vault to vow. Bestseller bomb. Tours with holograms of Alex's voice. Readings alive with his lilt. Widowhood waned to wisdom. Mentoring Ments. Sunset walks with Luna's successor. Whispers to wind. Miss you. Firecracker. 90th Family Feast. Toasts toasting trials transcended. Brian Rose. Cane steady. We shocked the world, then remade it. For love. Glasses clinked. Echoes eternal. In quiet nights. Brian traced wrist tattoo. Faded but fierce. Legacy? Not banks. But bonds, shattered, soldered, shining. The end? Not tragedy, but testament. Shocks subside. But stories, they endure.